I would tell Dave Coulier to do nothing different because if he doesn't do what he does, we don't get Jagged Little
You don't
Pill.
get, yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, stay the course, Uncle Joey.
Welcome to the Quicksand Club podcast, the podcast where we discuss every topic worth discussing one at a time. I'm Spencer Bainbridge, joined by
Dana Constance.
Zack Johnson.
Dan Kurtz.
Alex Marshall.
This podcast is brought to you by the law firm of Lobin and Lopez, specializing in magic eye-related lawsuits. Do you have permanent damage to your optic nerves from staring at magic eye 3D artwork? You may be entitled to compensation. Have a person whose eyes work visit our website to schedule a free consultation. At Lobin and Lopez, we don't get paid until your eyes uncross. Also brought to you by Billy Blanks' original Tybo Studio, where there hasn't been a line since 1999. And brought to you by gum. Remember when you used to buy gum? You still can. Our topic this episode is the 1990s. I wanted to start off by asking all of you, what is a memory, a personal memory that you have that could only have happened during that decade?
I remember going with my then girlfriend to this filthy apartment so that she could trade some cassettes of live fish performances for some different cassettes of live fish performances.
I think we have a winner. I'm going to call it right now.
Shut it
I
down.
think after the 90s, that would have been done digitally and we wouldn't have had to go there.
Wouldn't have had to leave a message on anyone's answering machine to make this meetup happen.
I think of it as being a windowless apartment, but I think it was just one of those we've blocked all the windows so that we don't get caught smoking weed situations.
Yeah, we've chosen it to be windowless. So you used to date a fish girl, huh?
Yeah, I don't think she is. I don't think she's remained a fish girl for very long after that. I think I dated a girl during a brief fish phase. She was in the Grateful Dead, but then Jerry Lewis died. And I thought, oh, I should call her. It's been 40 years.
Oh, the dead were never the same after Jerry Lewis died.
I had my courtship with my wife was very 90s in that she worked on a cruise ship and I would have to write her letters. And I actually also faxed her to her cruise ship, and it cost $85 to send one fax from a Kinko's.
And that was as much money you made in a shift to Foot Locker.
It was a lot of money.
Back then.
It was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Her and I took a road trip to Disneyland from San Francisco down to Anaheim, and we got down to LA. It was in 1994, by the way. And we drove in, and once we turned on the radio after listening to music on CDs all the way down, we discovered we had driven right into OJ's Bronco chase.
Wait,
Wow.
really? Because this was going to come up in this episode, this historical event.
Did.
You were there.
We were there. People running on the overpass, holding signs, "Go OJ." Had, when we had left San Francisco, I remember just seeing TV with the helicopters over his house and talking about maybe he was going to be brought in. But by the time we made it down there, we were on the highway, within a mile of him.
And Dana Constance, you were on your mobile phone the whole time yelling, "This is DC, damn it! You know who I am."
The gun to my head.
I specifically remember Bart Simpson introducing the world premiere of a new Michael Jackson music video on Fox. And it was a time when the world would have stood still to witness such a thing. I think it was black or white. Does anyone else remember this?
Yeah, did you see the first run where he destroys that car and turns into a puma?
Yes, he destroys a car in a fit of fury, grabs his crotch for like a full 30 seconds, and then CG morphs into a puma and then walks away. And that was the only time you could see that version, because after that they were like, "Oh, that's weird, isn't it?" And
They took that out?
They took it out for future reruns. Yeah, I watched it live. I remember.
Was that the video where they extended where he sort of smashed apart a car?
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. And it was essential to the story that he smash a car, grab his crotch, and then change it to a puma and slink away, because of the song's about, racial tolerance.
The CGI was weirdly good.
The state of the, I mean,
Well, him turning into a puma wasn't that great, but all the people turning into each other, like that morphing looked pretty good.
it
Yeah.
did for the time.
Who directed that? It was a big name director, wasn't it?
It was John Landis.
That's right, John Landis.
Yes. And no one, for a change, no one was killed.
Yeah.
Credit to him.
Oof.
Oh, I guess here's a memory that could only happen in the 90s. I watched an entire season of The Simpsons that was pretty good.
I remember being at a college party and everyone getting really excited to dance to the Bartman song.
No, was there any irony to this?
A lot of irony, yes.
Okay, all right. That song, by the way, was written by a pseudonymous Michael Jackson, and I'm not kidding. I think he had a hand in that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm about ready to have a cow.
I remember the premiere of that Madonna video where I guess the scandalous thing was that Jesus was black in it. It felt like a really small window where music videos would debut on network television.
Yeah.
Friday night videos.
This was just like primetime network stuff. Like
yeah, not even MTV.
That Michael Jackson one and that Madonna one are the only ones I remember them doing that for. So it might have just been like 1 week in the 90s.
I think you had to be really famous in order to turn it into an event.
They didn't show any new videos on MTV or VH1 because they were playing 24-hour loops of Meatloaf's I Would Do Anything for Love or Guns N' Roses' November Rain, respectively.
That gave them a couple of years of material.
Something to play between Axe body spray commercials.
Do you remember back in the 90s when certain shampoos would give women orgasms? That was a brief window of, it was exciting scientific development that seems to have just left the culture.
Was it the size of the bottle?
I remember how sometimes you would hear a song and you didn't have a thing that you could pull out of your pocket that would tell you what song it was. And so sometimes it would be months before you found out what the song was and were able to listen to it again.
If ever.
Yeah. Yeah, you were lucky if, like sometimes the radio would do that sort of like, and that was blah, 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 afterwards. But like sometimes they just like went into the next song and then like you had to get out of the car and you're at your destination. What the hell was that though? Like, and you just, maybe you get it, maybe you don't.
I never did find out the name of that song about Cotton Eye Joe.
It was a time of not knowing. Because sometimes you could just see something on TV and there was no guide on the TV necessarily, to give you the info about what had just happened on Channel 40 on Saturday night. And there was also time of just not knowing where people were. You would just not know where people were for long stretches of time because you didn't expect to be able to find out. And I find that's the thing that I think younger generations will have a hard time understanding is like, oh, people just didn't know where you were or where to reach you, but they trusted it would eventually be fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I moved from the Boston area to San Francisco, and I ended up moving here because I found a plane ticket for sale on a posting on it was a flyer up on a telephone pole. Someone was selling his return ticket to San Francisco that he'd flown to Boston, and I bought the ticket off the guy at a pub and flew to San Francisco under his name and got to the airport, flew under his name, never asked for an ID, checked in my bags and flew under the guy's name was Jim.
They didn't even make you take your guns out of your pocket to go through security.
No, they didn't. No.
You had a bomb in your shoe the whole time.
No, it was funny. My mom and my sister took me to the airport, and I think I had four suitcases because I was just trying to bring as much as I could. And the woman behind the counter assumed that the three of us were flying together, and so she checked in all the bags, and then realized it was just me, Jim. And she didn't charge me anything for it, and I flew under his name. And no security. Walked right to the gate. Walked with my mom. She gave me a hug and jumped on a plane. And all things you could never do today.
Left the airport, went to his house, moved in with his wife. Rest is history.
Yes, I'm Jim Mohammed. No follow-up questions, please. That is a very 90s story, Dana.
Yeah. I mean, it's to me, it's still shocking that you could get away with that in the 90s because that feels more like 1950s.
This is 20 years after D.B. Cooper. Like, you think they would have clamped down a little earlier on people just showing up and be like, yeah, I'm whoever, just give me a plane ticket. Yeah, okay,
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
But they basically treated them like train tickets. And now you get on a train, nobody checks your ID or anything.
The stakes never felt that high. And again, I don't mean to bring the mood down, but I feel like the thing that sets the 90s apart in my mind was the last time the stakes didn't feel that high most of the time.
Do you think that's because you were a kid or because things were actually different?
Maybe it's both. I mean, in the 2000s, I think we had heightened concerns about terrorism because of 9/11, and then we were at war. And then in the 2010s, we elected the worst person in the universe because our parents, we had to kind of come to the sad realization that our parents' generation is full of fucking morons. But and currently we're having all this strife. But I feel like the 1990s was like, sure, there was trouble, there were problems, there was terrorism, there were all these bad things. But it's like, I don't know, if on a given day the stakes felt lower, and maybe that's because of I was a little kid, but I also think that maybe they just were.
The lack of social media and really the pre 24/7 news coverage of life, which I think really sort of started with OJ. Just sort of like you lived your life and you weren't so glued to the moments of things, so you didn't feel the pressure. Life was there. I mean, I remember when the first Gulf War started, with Kuwait, and I thought I was going to go down to the recruiting office and volunteer because it was going to be my generation's call to duty. And some of my coworkers, I worked a part-time job, said, no, you should wait a couple days before you do that. Don't run off in a huff. And then in a few days, the war was pretty much over. So I didn't, thank God for them, or else I would have ran off and joined the Marines or something like that. And
President George H.W. Bush's rhetoric was so powerful, you almost wanted to sign up.
It was just, I thought that was, because my dad was he was in the military for Vietnam, and my grandfather was World War II. I thought this was going to be my generation's thing to do. I don't know if it wasn't him going on TV and saying doing it. It was just that sense of that's what you need to do.
If spending time around Vietnam vets taught me anything, it's that the military always knows what they're doing, and joining the army is a great idea.
My dad was in the reserves. He didn't actually go to Vietnam, but he was always in service. So I felt that was just the thing to do. But fortunately, my shoe store manager, because I worked at a shoe store in college, said, hey, you should hold off. And I did, and never went back.
Oh, I've been clearing out my parents' garage, which involves looking through a lot of newspapers from the 90s. And I think I can back you up, Spencer, that there wasn't like two overarching things that every front page was about for a year, the way that it is now, where like everything is about Trump or AI or like these, three like narratives that are consuming everybody all the time. It felt like, in retrospect, it felt like they were searching for something to feel important. Like, this thing that's happening halfway across the world, we're going to try to make that a thing, but it didn't really stick.
And there'd be articles like, this is unprecedented. It's the end of the world. They may have to shut down the government because they haven't figured out the budget. And now this happens like on a semi-monthly basis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for the 90s, it was the things that maintained eyes were it was OJ, and Bill Clinton and his lying to Congress, and the whole the cigar and the what's her name, and the did he sleep with what's her name? Did not have sexual relations with what's her name? See,
You're pretending not to.
Monica
You're pretending not to
Monica
remember her
Lewinsky.
name, as if
No,
it
because
were
I
Bill
remember
Clinton himself.
I
don't remember the name of that woman.
I can't remember that.
I don't remember her name.
We went to we threw a Halloween party one year, and I dressed up as Bill Clinton, and in a twist, one of my closest friends, who was a Colombian, he was originally from Colombia, and sort of a weightlifter guy. He came dressed as Monica Lewinsky, and even stained his outfit just for me. So we were. Johanna didn't care too much about that, but so we were Monica and Bill at the party.
This was the brief time when that was the cutting edge of hilarity.
Huge scandal. Oh, it was a massive scandal. My God, that the president
big decade for semen-themed Halloween costumes.
It was.
I do remember being afraid of getting AIDS. That was the thing they really drilled into us.
Monogamy is one of the things that peaked in the 90s, because if you were of age in the 90s, like they made songs like Salt and Pepper wrote a whole song about monogamy. There were plenty of songs in pop music just about one man, one woman, one couple together. You weren't messing around. And being in college at that time, you would think that's time to, mess around a bit, but it was not.
I just want to state for the record that that is the reason why I did not have very much sex in college. Was I was very health focused.
You were worried about HIV.
That's what it was. Yeah, that's what it
good.
was
Yeah.
in retrospect. Yeah.
Well, I think the 90s was also the peak age of television where people were going on daytime TV and accusing each other of cheating and say, that's not my baby, and like Jerry Springer and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, and in some, in some circles or like in one universe, monogamy was very was being questioned and challenged on daytime TV.
Yeah, was monogamy big, or were you just a nice guy?
No, trust me. I tried to, every Thursday night I was at the bars in Boston trying to break that trend, but it was hard. A lot harder than it should have been.
Thursday's promiscuity night in Boston.
That's a
There was a
different
lot
episode.
of there was a lot of just sort of like social awareness sort of became a big thing. There was all the sort of like, save the whales, environmental sort
Sure.
of thing, like all this, yeah, like the safe sex, all this sort of stuff. Like I remember, as a because I was born in 81, so like the 90s were sort of like all the way from like I guess I would have been like late elementary school all the way through high school. Like that was, the 90s for me. So I really sort of did see, all like Earth Day became like a big thing. And it was just sort of like, hey, let's be aware of things. And that's like cool. And sort of like that sort of thing that I feel like, I don't know. The 80s was so sort of focused on like have more, do more, flashy, 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 and then the 90s was like, hey man, let's chill out. And then we sort of like swung back in the 2000s when the frosted tips came back in the hair.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was because the 90s kids, their parents had made enough money in the 80s that they didn't have anything to worry about. So they were able to just sit around whining about stuff all day.
Yeah, I also think I know what you're saying, Alex, but I feel like the flip side of that is the 90s, it was also super cool to be detached because
Oh yeah.
caring about anything made you a lame tryhard.
Well, that came, that was sort of like the anti thing. Like that, I guess that was the other thing. Is like I feel like when you sort of look at the 90s, it sort of feels like we were doing like a speed run of everything that you could do like in a decade. Because the first year or so of any decade is still kind of the previous decade, and
Yeah.
so like I mean we and you in like you have like the Seattle grunge movement and everything of music, and then like just a few years later, it's all like bubblegum pop, Britney Spears, and sync shit like that. And it just like things were swinging so fast back and forth, and they're like I don't know. I always sort of like track music through decades and everything, and I just feel like there was the 90s was like a time when it was like there's all sorts of shit like oh what's gonna stick, let's try this like and it just sort of went everywhere.
I can't prove this, and also it's not funny. But I kind of think that because the 90s sort of feels to me like the last decade with a particular inflection in a lot of ways, because I think what I attribute it to is computers got good enough that a song could contain basically any sound you could conceive of, right? Like they didn't invent a new instrument that changed the way music sounded, like a synthesizer or an electric guitar or whatever. I kind of believe that if you took an alien and you sat them down and played a bunch of songs from 2025 and 2005 and asked them which one was older, and then you did the same thing between 1995 and 1975, that it would be much harder to tell the last 20 years of culture apart than the previous 20 years.
It feels facile to say so, but it's like the 1990s are very much the 20th century. You know what I mean? And then once you get past the 90s, we're into the 21st century, and things look and sound a lot more synthetic and samey. Like the 1990s
Mhm.
feels like maybe the end of the 20th century feels like the last handmade decade in a way, right?
Well,
Did you change any, like, we talk about decades, right? But I don't think it's like everybody on December 31st, 1989 was like, all right, I'm putting away my fluorescent green shit and grabbing some flannel and some, throwback paisley or whatever.
I'm selling my DeLorean right now.
Did something happen that made it harder to get cocaine starting in 1990?
I don't know. I think the 80s just saw enough cocaine deaths that its popularity
They
plummeted
did.
naturally. Like I've actually heard Hollywood folks talk about how like the death of John Belushi made them go like, "Oh, that shit can kill you." No kidding.
Yeah.
You know?
There was a basketball player who Len Bias
Oh, right.
just came out of college and decided to celebrate when he got drafted by the NBA as I think the number one or number two pick, and he died like at a party doing coke, and that was a real wake up to that drug. I think that was '86.
No, yeah, cocaine definitely suffered some popularity in the 90s, and I know this because celebrities got noticeably fatter. You know what I mean? Like
But then
like movie stars were fatter in the 90s than they were in the 80s or even in the 2000s, because then the standards kicked up again and people had to get super skinny again. And
Although,
men's suits got super tight in the 2000s.
yeah,
Maybe I blame Daniel Craig and George Clooney, but like men's suits got too tight. But in the 90s, you were allowed to be like 20 pounds overweight and wear a loose suit, and you could still be a hot dude.
everything was baggy back then.
Yeah, everything's baggy.
everything was
Yeah.
baggy. But then the sort of like the look for like the women in the '90s was that sort of like heroin chic sort of
Yeah.
thing, which like
Yeah.
as somebody who likes curves on a woman was just sort of like, "Ugh, this sucks." It was a little bit of a rough decade for a while there.
It went from
Yeah,
it went from Cindy Crawford to Kate Moss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because people traded cocaine for safe drugs like heroin and crack.
You know, it's weird. We mentioned OJ a couple times. It's like we think about the 90s, we think about OJ. But if OJ had simply stayed out of trouble, he wouldn't be in the 90s conversation at all. He was done. He was retired from football. He was like acting in, Naked Gun sequels. Yeah, exactly. It was like
It's just
his cultural relevance would have ended in 1986 if he'd just not, been a murderer.
he might
But
have
it's like,
figured out something. He might have figured out some other way to.
He would have
I mean,
parlayed those Hertz rent-a-car things into something else.
yeah, maybe the eighth Naked Gun movie would have been a tour de force.
what's the most 90s song of the 90s? I'm going to posit that it's that Blessed Union of Souls song that's like, she likes me for me, not because I hang with Leonardo. And the whole thing is just pop culture references, because in the 90s, referencing popular culture meant, oh, you're really smart. Like there's a lot of weird cachet in that, and then people overdid it. But it was like referencing popular culture suddenly became something that was considered hip and hilarious to everybody.
Billy Joel fucked up because we didn't start the fire was about things that happened before the 90s.
Yeah, and I think that came out in the '80s. Technically, that
Yeah.
was technically an '80s look back. Yeah, but he was ahead of the curve, as Billy always is.
As he
If it had
always
been
is.
about things that happened in the 90s, it would have been a really impressive song.
Yeah, it would have been extremely impressive if in '89 Billy Joel was singing like Monica Lewinsky Bin Laden. Amazing. The guy's a genius.
I'm gonna vote for the Bartman song. So
Because I don't feel like Smells Like Teen Spirit was emblematic of the 90s exactly. Like, just a good
that was
good
emblematic of
song.
the
I
first
think
half of
that's
the '90s.
that's
And
just
then
the thing.
maybe-
It's like there. I don't think they're like there were so many sort of like distinct and complete like musical sort of movements within that decade, and it was it was sort of a thing where like you could say that like yeah it could be Smells Like Teen Spirit, or it could be like fucking Four Non-Blondes, What's Up. You could do Beck. You could do like there's so many
like
different
the
things. You could do Wanna Be by
Fat Boy
Spice
Slim,
Girls. Like
Yeah.
yeah, like there's like there's sort of like there's so many different things like as the 90s kind of like went on, and there was and like what was like pop music was still diverse, whereas I think now it's a little bit more focused and everything, and things kind of sound samey, and there
But
was just sort of like so
I
many
also
different
think that
things.
like a given record now, like the most popular record of 2000 anything is heard by fewer people than the most popular record of 1990 anything,
Sure.
just because everything has fragmented so much and like yeah, the monoculture's gone. So it's like
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
also you can't like thinking about like I legitimately don't understand how to assess whether Taylor Swift is a bigger deal than Michael Jackson because nobody buys albums anymore. So you can't use the thing that you used for our entire lives to assess how big a musical artist is,
Right.
right?
I think it's like I think but I think it's like it is sort of one of those things where like there because like I don't I think like I Taylor Swift is obviously huge, but I think that like because of like the monoculture and everything, like is she ever going to have Bart Simpson introduce her music video? No, she's not.
I think the reason nobody's gonna introduce her on TV is because like nobody watches TV anymore. She'd be like, why would my song premiere on TV when it could premiere on YouTube where everybody's actually watching?
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
also tough to talk about things being emblematic of a decade because sometimes that's almost a pejorative. Like I think "Smells Like Teen Spirit" is too good and has aged too well to be emblematic of the '90s. But like someone, I like Beck. I think Beck's great, but like Beck is very '90s in terms of
Hmm.
aesthetic and attitude. Where it's like when I think of the beat, when I think of the '60s, I didn't live to, I didn't experience the '60s firsthand. I don't think of the Beatles. I think of Strawberry Alarm Clock and the Archies. Like
Hmm.
that's what in my because the Beatles are timeless, but like the fucking
Right.
Archies scream 1968.
Right.
So what about so let's say Closer by Nine Inch Nails. That was emblematic of a certain kind of like sort of I don't know, stop motion meat in your music video nihilism that kind of defined, you know, say the culture of the movie Blade
Sure,
or
and an edge
like
lordiness.
yeah.
Yeah,
But just yeah, like that sort of like gothy nihilism that I absolutely loved, and I
Okay.
still kind of love all the trappings of it. It's just like you can't show anyone anything from the 90s, A, because it's just nothing but slurs the entire time.
yeah.
And and B, it's like all kind of embarrassing in retrospect. Except for,
Okay.
like you say, like Nirvana, like never mind, still fucking great album.
Yeah.
Like
All right. So what about though? Like I just like what about Wonderwall by Oasis? Now I was personally a more of a Blur fan myself, but like it is like you've got like sort of a jangly guitar, you've got a whiny vocalist, you've got a thing that sort of feels like it's about something but isn't because there is no fucking thing such as a Wonderwall. So it's like it I feel like that, and the music video was black and white, which is pretentious as fucking 90s as hell right there. Like I like
yeah,
that's
I feel
for
like you
like
could just
and
kind of tell that that song was made by assholes. Like even then, even if you didn't know anything about them, you just got a sense
And
that it's like,
they were a Beatles knockoff. I remember, people watched the Grammys, and in somewhere in the mid '90s, Ricky Martin just blew onto the screen and did "Living La Vida Loca," and that introduced America. And the next day, my wife, who I dated and loved because she loved Live 105, Depeche Mode, alternative music, all of a sudden loved Ricky Martin, loved the music, and all of a sudden this pop wave just completely changed the music landscape. Much like Nirvana killed the 80s, I think Ricky Martin was a signal towards this is going to be the second half of the 90s where Britney Spears and Spice Girls came in and it became that slick, Swedish produced pop music.
Just the very tail end of the '90s, leading into the 2000s.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, I mean that's it. So that's the other like there's the Ace of Base facet of the 90s. There's the Macarena facet of
mhm.
90s like
Yeah,
yeah.
and don't forget about another thing that peaked in the '90s: rap wars. I mean, you got the East Coast, West Coast. You got Biggie and Tupac. I mean, those are and gangster rap came through the 90s. That was a big deal.
Mhm.
It was a big,
All right,
big
well,
deal.
I'll posit that the song of the 90s then is the Sunscreen song, which
The Baz Luhrmann, yeah.
monologue against sort of a light rock,
Mhm.
meandering riff, just because it gets to Alex's point about just how there was so much diversity and such random stuff getting popular, or at least getting into the culture. And I think that is the weirdest, sort of least accessible thing that somehow became popular and culturally relevant, uh, as like a hit song.
Right.
And also kind of an inflection point towards, hey, what if everything was like fucking painfully sincere for a while? Like moving from the 90s to like, well, wait a minute. You know what we could use right now is some just homespun, heartfelt advice about how to have a better life.
Well, I wanted to talk about that because such a feature of the 1990s was this detached irony. And then I think, in addition to the fact that just times naturally change and mores change, 9/11 happened. And then, like, you had, I think it was Graydon Carter from Vanity Fair who famously, stupidly declared, the age of irony is over. No one will ever be ironic ever again because this terrible thing happened. But like in retrospect, it wasn't totally idiotic because I think things did turn more sincere after that. And after that, there was a very noticeable turn in the culture that was like, seriously though, have some respect. Have some respect. Like, can we not be
My
serious?
my roommate got so mad at me because when he went to use Google on my computer on September 12th, 2001, it auto-completed that I had searched for September 11th jokes. And he was really upset with me.
You were just already looking for some comic relief. It was tough times.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up around cops, like the jokes that's what jokes are for, is for things that are too terrible to cope with.
I think that the spirit of irony and tasteless jokes kind of lived on the internet. And so it was the New York Times being like, oh, we need to be serious now, and it's the end of irony. And meanwhile, on the internet, people are sending chain letters to each other and, going to their little their little jokes pages about the X-Files, or the, 9/11 meets South Park, or whatever you want to whatever mashups you
Mhm.
wanted to do.
Early Twitter was like the edgelord's paradise, and some people paid for it later in their careers.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, where everybody was just forming little nascent right-wing militias without even realizing they were doing it.
Yeah. Oops.
And here's a question for you, everybody, I guess. Ultimate 90s movie.
What's yours?
And I'll let,
it's not like you had one.
I would have to say it probably is Titanic. It's all Titanic.
I only ever saw the first half of Titanic.
I won't spoil
I've
it
never
for you.
seen it.
I was on 2 VHSs and I watched the first one and I was like, man, I don't really want to go put that other tape in. I'm not enjoying this enough.
Yeah, but it played both sides of the coin. I mean, it was historic. And guys tend to like the historic there. You like things blowing up and sinking. That was great. But then you had the romantic of Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet and the ladies like that, and had sort of a Downton Abbey upstairs downstairs type thing going on to it. I mean, it was perfectly suited to get everyone in the theater, and it had the song.
Yeah, I got my 2 VHS movies confused. I watched the first tape of Titanic and the second tape of JFK. And I'm watching it. I'm like, oh, maybe the Cubans were involved. I don't know. Titanic. No, Titanic was a all-encompassing pop cultural phenomenon that I don't think we've seen since. Because as we discussed, the monoculture's kind of disappeared, and that was the last gasp of monoculture, and that was the last huge thing of the monoculture. It was like The Godfather, but if The Godfather had had a #1 hit song in it too. Like it was everything everywhere all at once from like 97 to 98. And I don't think we will see that again.
I've never seen Titanic, and I could probably deconstruct it scene by scene from all of the parodies and just like stuff that was about the behind the scenes stuff from the 90s. And yeah, it was everywhere. Every little scene was referenced all over the place.
I mean, you can say, there's what you thought was what you personally think is a great movie, and what was like your favorite 90s song or 90s band, and then what the culture in general, which was a little more not so cool. It's Titanic, but I mean, to me, I saw Pulp Fiction on opening night and
Yeah,
still think Pulp
Fiction
Fiction is the
dominates.
greatest movie of the 90s in my personal home, but it did not. And it's huge, but it's Titanic.
This is a weirdly,
It's
it's like a
dwarfs in
70s,
Titanic.
it's kind of a 70s period piece, sort of.
In spirit,
Well,
if
it's
not
it's the
literally.
it's like yeah, it's the sort of like alternate history America, then if you sort of like if you like yeah, if you later sort of look at like all of his oeuvre there, like if it takes place in the same world as Inglourious Basterds, like well, okay, well Hitler was killed in the theater in this world and all that sort of shit, so it was very different. But I was gonna say like to the point of I was actually also gonna say Pulp Fiction, but to the point of like monoculture and parody and everything, I think actually maybe the last one that really hit was 1999's The Matrix. Like
Yeah.
that was like I remember walking out of the theater there and I was like, I wonder if this is what my parents felt like when they left Star Wars. Like the first time I was like, it was like something happened here. Like this was, and it was parodied relentlessly. That like
For 5 years.
the 360 camera, the bullet time, all that shit was like everywhere.
Yeah.
But I mean, that leads me to, it's like the 90s were probably the last for like appointment TV, outside maybe
Sure.
Game of Thrones, where things get released, but you had to watch it on Sunday night or Friends on Thursday, I guess.
I will still watch, once every 18 months or whatever, I'll stay up until a new season of I Think You Should Leave drops.
Ooh, that's great.
I was watching Severance as it came out.
Yep.
But in terms of TV, like monoculture, again, yeah, like HBO had like Thrones. It had stuff, in the 2000s and teens and 20s and everything. But like, yeah, it was sort of like the 90s was the last time. Again, I think because there were 4 networks. There just wasn't much. If you're gonna watch TV, you've got not a whole lot of options.
We're getting a little bit back in that direction though, because I feel like there's now like 4 streaming services that have bought up all of the other smaller streaming services, and so they're starting to be a little bit more like
But they each have so much stuff on them.
Yeah, but it does feel like everyone was watching Severance. Maybe that's just self-selection among the people that I talk to. But
True.
I don't think everyone has Apple TV.
It's a fine distinction, but the thing is, it's like you might be watching it right when it comes out, but you don't know for a fact that you and everyone else are watching it at the exact same moment, which used to be the case. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
Answering the phone blindly. Like you pick up the phone and not know who's on the other line.
Right.
Oh, no, I'm never picking up the phone if I don't know.
No, you never. No, pick it ever. But imagine,
and as like a teenager in the 90s, that was like the last time that like, I would call over to a girl's house, and then like, dear Lord, I might have to talk to her parents for a while she is like doing whatever the hell she was doing. Like, then you're just like, I'm here. This is what I'm doing, and it was terrifying, but we did it. And I feel like, now like kids will never, I mean, I have younger, 20-year-olds or whatever that work for me. And like, I cannot call them. I have to text them if that, like you will not answer the phone if I call. So, okay.
Yeah. Boys today just have to send dick pics to their girlfriend's parents.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
It took, how much it costs to fax a dick pic across the satellite. It was a lot.
Long distance, yeah.
I do feel like the government of the 90s, if telephones had gotten as like just nightmarish and shitty as cell phones are right now, in terms of just every call being some scam and every text being some scam, I feel like the government of the 90s would have probably done something about it.
Probably.
Yeah.
No,
I guess I just can't believe that we used to call each other in a manner that like made your phone make the most blaring loud noise that it possibly could. And you had no idea what someone was doing at the time. You just kind of assumed that they
Right.
weren't doing anything because nope, I guess nobody was doing anything so
Yeah.
important that they couldn't pick up the phone.
Right now, an unexpected phone call seems like invasive in a way that seems socially unacceptable, but it used to be completely normal.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
if you called and like they were out, then like they're just out. Like when are they getting back? Oh, later.
I have a question for you guys. If your cell phone rings and it is a friend calling you out of the blue, does that ever bother you?
It doesn't bother me, but it surprises me because it happens so infrequently.
Because like I don't think that people have fundamentally changed since the 90s. Like I think what we can learn from the fact that we just called and you'd made a loud noise in somebody's house is that you could just call somebody now and it would be fine. It's just that everyone is scared of a problem that's not real, which is kind of
That's possible.
emblematic of our age. Like
Yeah, true.
I
Yeah.
don't know, man. I spent a lot more time on the phone during COVID, but it was like you text, be like, "Hey, is it okay if I call?"
Sure.
And it's like, oh, this actually kind of sucks. But I don't know.
If my friend called me, I would not be upset, but there's a pretty big likelihood that I wouldn't pick up if I was doing anything at all. Like,
You
oh,
see
I can't.
excuses.
I'm scrolling on my phone right now. I can't.
Yeah, you're not so
Yeah.
starved. You're not so starved for attention that the prospect of talking to another human being is delightful rather than like inconvenient compared to this stream of short form video that I could be using to
Yeah.
poison my ability to reason.
All right, that is our show. Thanks all for joining me. I'm Spencer Bainbridge. I was joined by
Dana Constance.
Zack Johnson.
Dan Kurtz.
Alex Marshall.
Email us at quicksandclub@gmail.com. Suggest an episode topic or ask us a question. We'd like to hear from you. Please join us next time for Quicksand Club, uplifting comedy for a slowly sinking world.
I would like to see when Dave Matthews dumped all that shit.
I was gonna say, maybe the Dave Matthews shit bridge thing.
Like